Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, what would happen if your mobile phone killed you?
We are tonight's entertainment.
I would rather watch Beautician and the Beast.
People don't forget.
And here we go.
Made for movies.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Made for Movies podcast. I am your host, Aaron Wolf. With me as always, Mr. Eric Russo. What's up, brother?
Not too much. Ready to rock this action-packed episode.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some Oscars, and then of course we're going to get into our official Made for Movies review of the Mortal Kombat 2021 release. Just came out on HBO Max and in theaters. The Oscars, what an interesting turn of events with not only viewership, but some surprise winners. General thoughts on this year's Oscars. Take it away.
Yeah, I'll start off by just saying that in general, I'm not the biggest fan of the Oscars. I will follow the results and check who wins because I'm interested in the actors and I want them to be recognized for, their accomplishments. But it's not something that I put a lot of stock into. In general, the Oscars focuses on a very specific type of movie usually, which is totally fine. Most of those movies are typically very, very good. It's just not something that I'm crazy about. Having said that, this year there was a couple of things I was following. General thoughts was it was a very poor overall presentation. I know that they really struggled due to COVID, so I totally don't necessarily blame them. Viewership took a huge hit this year. It was almost cut in half from last year's 22 million people watched. This year, only 9 million people watched the Oscars. They definitely could have probably put this together a little bit better. Steven Soderbergh is the one who directed the event. It was very strange with the layout, especially with which we'll get into, the Best Picture winner going not last for the first time since 1946. Overall, considering it was a short year, we did end up getting a lot of great movies, so it was cool to see a lot of the Best Picture winners get some cool recognition, but overall, I thought it was a very skippable year.
I kind of tend to agree with you on that about all awards shows. It just seems like the movies that get nominated most of the time are not like critically known, or not that they're not critically known, that they're not like the viewership is not really that big for a lot of them. And it just seems like personal opinion means way more to people than what some institution says is the best of the best, like whether it's Golden Globes, Oscars, etc. Just seems like it doesn't mean that much these days.
This year's Oscars, they took it from 2020 plus the first couple months of 2021. So very interesting year. It'll be interesting to see if that's what they do moving forward, or if the 2021 Oscars will just be the last 9 months of this year. Very curious to see what they do, but let's just jump into some of the winners.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll start with Best Adapted Screenplay, which the winner, the movies that were in the category: The Father, Nomadland, One Night in Miami, The White Tiger, and my favorite to be nominated for any type of Oscar is Borat subsequent movie film, so the Borat sequel. I wish that would have won every single title, but of course it didn't. The winner this year went to The Father, directed by Christopher Hampton, Florian Zeller. It was based on the play by Zeller. What did you think about this one?
Very good movie. It's still behind the paywall, so you got to pay $20 to watch it. I wouldn't recommend anyone do that, but it's good. I'm sure it'll be free at some point moving forward. A couple great performances in it. As far as winning Best Adapted Screenplay, looking at the lists, yeah, I would probably say that's a fair assessment. You have Nomadland and Borat there, well-deserving. I know Borat was kind of making some late movement as far as the odds were going the day of, so there was like a 50-50 shot that was going to win. Was really hoping that he won an Oscar, Sacha Baron Cohen. That would have been awesome, but it was not to be, so...
Absolutely. Moving into Best Original Screenplay, the nominees for that were Judas and the Black Messiah, which we've talked about in the podcast, Minari, Sound of Metal, Trial of Chicago 7, and the winner, Promising Young Woman. I didn't see this. I know you did. Do you think this was deserving of Best Original Screenplay?
I do not. So as far as that movie goes, I wasn't a huge fan of it, but the things I did like about it were the directing, the cinematography, and some of the acting. As far as original screenplay, I think the screenplay was the weakest part of the movie by far. And when you look at these other 5 movies, I think all 4 are significantly more deserving. Of the four, I probably would go Judas and the Black Messiah. I thought that movie had the strongest screenplay.
Absolutely. That brings us to Best Supporting Actress. Nominees were Maria Bakalova for Borat 2, Glenn Close for Hillbilly Elegy, Olivia Colman for The Father, and Amanda Seyfried for Mank. And the winner was Yoon Yoo-jung for Minari. I basically saw Borat, so I'm happy to see that his little daughter was in that movie getting some Oscar love, at least the nomination. It's really cool. Other than that, didn't catch much the other ones, but Minari I heard is great. It's definitely on my list. It will be watched at some point. Do you think this was deserving as well?
Yeah, absolutely. She was a heavy favorite. She's definitely deserving. Her speech was the best of the night, where she talked about how she finally got to meet Brad Pitt. I thought that was really funny.
That brings us to Best Supporting Actor. Sacha Baron Cohen for Trial of Chicago 7, Leslie Odom Jr., One Night in Miami, Paul Raci, Sound of Metal, and Lakeith Stanfield, Judas and the Black Messiah. But the winner, I thought most deservingly, Daniel Kaluuya, Judas and the Black Messiah. He killed it in this movie. I think it's well-deserved. His performance was really second to none in that movie, and it really does show how good the movie was and how well acted it was to have two nominees in one category. I think if any movie has that, it's certainly pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, although The Irishman had the same thing before with the multiple nominations in the same category, so not always good. But yeah, he is the clear-cut winner. I knew right when we saw this that they could, stop worrying about who was going to win this award. It was clearly going to be him. Very happy for him now that he gets to be marketed as a Best Picture winner, which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving right along to Best Actress, we had Viola Davis in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Andra Day in The United States versus Billie Holiday, Vanessa Kirby, Pieces of a Woman, and Carey Mulligan, Promising Young Woman. Once again, another nomination for that. But the winner, Frances McDormand from Nomadland as Fern. I thought this was a very interesting movie. Her performance is obviously great. She's a former Oscar winner. What'd you think about her in Nomadland?
She's great in it. Not my favorite movie again. Very weird movie, but definitely she's fantastic. Well worthy of winning Best Actress. I personally would have preferred Viola Davis to win for Black Bottom. I thought that was the clear standout for the year for me anyway. And going into it, she was the favorite to win. But, you can't really be too mad. Frances McDormand looked like she was on meth at the Academy Awards. And her speech was like 18 seconds long, which was always appreciated. So props to her for keeping it short.
Gotta love a good meth speech. They are short and sweet. Moving right along into so the funny thing, I was going to say let's do Best Actor next, but it looks like the Academy Awards decided to do Best Actor last, which everyone thought was going to mean something really cool, possibly a special tribute. So maybe we'll save that one. We'll go into Best Director. Thomas Vinterberg for Another Round, David Fincher for Mank, Lee Isaac Chung for Minari, and Emerald Fennell for Promising Young Woman. The winner was, again, Nomadland, Chloe Zhao. Well directed, pretty interesting, cinematography in that movie. So, what'd you think about that?
No, she's definitely deserving of this award. Really happy for her. Again, not my favorite movie, but clearly very well directed. Looking forward to some of the projects she has coming up, specifically Marvel's Eternals. I think that will be possibly the next Guardians of the Galaxy for them. Maybe not as funny, but just as far as a project that most people won't be familiar with. We've already seen it with Taika Waititi, these very good directors that can come in and put their own little spin on things. I think that's what I expect from her. I don't expect it to just be all complete CGI.
Absolutely, and that's a quick spoiler for you guys. Best Picture winner this year was Nomadland, up against most of the other movies I've already mentioned, including The Father, Judas, Mank, Minari, etc. But a pretty ridiculous-looking group to be in, and then Nomadland stands out. We don't have to go into it too much more.
Yeah, all in all, a lot of these movies are very, very good to great movies. This year definitely, for me, did not have that standout masterpiece, but it did have a lot of movies that we would grade on the great to amazing 8 to 9 scale. For me, I did like Nomadland. It wasn't my favorite movie of the year. I would have preferred to seen The Sound of Metal, The Father, Minari or Judas and the Black Messiah win this. I think they were a little bit of a stronger overall film as far as from the acting, writing, directing, everything. But at the same time, I know that this is a gorgeous movie. She did an incredible job directing it. Frances McDormand did a fantastic job leading it. And, you know, at the end of the day, they could have had much worse picks from the choices for sure.
That does bring us to Best Actor. Riz Ahmed in Sound of Metal, Chadwick Boseman, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Gary Oldman in Mank, and Stephen Yeun in Minari all lost to Anthony Hopkins in The Father. This one was pretty controversial.
Yes, it was. Anthony Hopkins gave a great performance. Most people expected Chadwick Boseman to win, including the producers of the Oscars, who put this award on last for the first time since 1944, I believe. So very unfortunate events, just in the sense of it's not an issue that Anthony Hopkins won. It's just an issue of the way they presented it, especially with Chadwick Boseman's widow there, kind of anticipating giving a speech that must have been a pretty terrible moment for her. Otherwise, great performance from Anthony Hopkins. Not too much else to say about the Oscars.
And that wraps up the Oscars for us, guys. Not something that seems to be a very popular show these days, so we won't spend too much more time talking about it. We're going to move right into our official made-for-movies review of Mortal Kombat 2021. Here we go.
All right, so let's dive into it. I know for you, the 1995 Mortal Kombat does mean a lot to you, as well as some of the earlier games like Mortal Kombat 2. Just going into this new movie, what were your expectations?
Admittedly, my expectations were pretty high based on the trailer. I thought it would be pretty cool. This is where trailers are really effective in terms of dragging you in. I didn't think that it could be a bad movie with all that we know about bad movies. And then the one thing I did expect was, because it was said multiple times in both the trailer and in advertisements from HBO, that there was going to be a tournament. So there's some stuff that was a little bit off about this. And unfortunately, my expectations were kind of shattered. How about yourself?
Yeah, mine were pretty low. Again, so when we watched the trailer, like I said back then, the trailer looked amazing, but my concerns were always with the fact that this was a first-time director with a first-time writer, and rarely does that turn out well for anyone. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't expecting much. My hope was that we got a decent action movie, a coherent action movie with some great effects, and just a good 2 hours at the movies. Just overall, what would you say are your general thoughts on this movie? Yeah,
so I will start with all the negative stuff first. That it's not good. It's overall, the dialogue is pretty bad, especially two characters, one being Jax, the other one being Liu Kang. The main character, who is Cole Young, played by Louis Tan, is not a good actor. I kept saying, this reminds me so much of how bad Hayden Christensen is in in Attack of the Clones. He's just it seems like he's just literally reading from cue cards or something like that. Other than some of the special effects and some of the stuff like the fighting and the choreography, most of it is just a pretty trash movie overall. But I would say that the actual fighting and choreography was decent, and I was very happy to see some of the fatalities that we have not seen in previous Mortal Kombat movies, especially the ones that came from Mortal Kombat 2, the game, like Jax and Kung Lao, which lend nothing to the story, but the movie overall is extremely gruesome. I would say I had that reaction if anybody's watched Hot Tub Time Machine, when they're just waiting over and over again for Crispin Glover's character as the concierge guy to get his arm chopped off. And then when it finally happens, they're like, oh, God. And one guy pukes and whatever. I had that reaction several times to several of the more gross, kind of bloody, gory parts of this. And then I will say that Kano as Josh Lawson was the standout performance without question. And overall, he was one bright light in a very dim overall movie. So that's my general thoughts.
Whew. Yeah. General thoughts for me, I tend to agree with you on a lot of stuff. I don't want to bash this movie too much. I understand that it's a Mortal Kombat movie. I know what I signed up for. But overall, just not a huge fan of this compared to the 1995 movie. That one holds up I think, even better than this today. Like, if they just re-release that movie, I think it's still a better movie. A lot of that comes down to the editing, the cinematography, and just the way a lot of the fights were shot. This movie chose to do a lot of quick cuts, and the editing was very jumbled together. In fact, they mashed like 2 or 3 fights happening simultaneously together, which it's hard for the fights to carry like emotional weight. So we'll get into some spoilers, but the opening scene in the movie, the fight scene is fantastic. And I think that has to do with that it's a singular fight scene. You get the clear established who's involved in it, and you can kind of pick a side pretty quickly on what you want to happen. The rest of the fights is like watching someone you don't like play a video game that you're like not allowed to, hey, can I have a turn? So
that's hilarious.
I did have a lot of issues with it. My main issues are with the trailer. The trailer was fantastic, but it does give away pretty much the entire movie after watching the movie, which is really unfortunate. That I think every cool moment in the movie is in the trailer, except for 2 fatalities. As far as the gore, I really didn't think it was that like gruesome. Like you're saying, it was very cartoonish and CGI to me, to the point where like I don't think anyone should be like grossed out by it if you're worried about that. But yeah, there was some decent action scenes for sure. But overall, definitely a letdown, I would say.
Yeah. What do we say we get into our official rating, and then we'll get into some spoilers. So what would you give this movie as an official rating?
Yeah, it's a really tough movie to grade. So what I would say is, if you are a diehard fan of not only the games but the movie, the 1995 movie, is you will find enough entertainment here to get through it. If you don't really like the games and you do like the movie, you're probably not going to like this too much because it deviates heavily from the 95 film. And if you don't know anything, you should probably skip this one and go watch a really good R-rated action movie like the John Wick series. But overall, I'll be very generous. I'll give it a 5 out of 10, mostly for the fact that there are a couple really great action scenes. One at the beginning of the movie and one towards the end of the movie. The special effects throughout are very, very good, considering it's only a $45 million budgeted movie. And there are some nostalgia-driven moments that if you are a fan of these games and these movies, that you're going to recognize and that you're going to, feel like a little kid again. But I did have some serious issues with it, specifically most of the actors, and really, if maybe not even their fault, just the screenplay was very, very poor, which I think, again, ties back to the fact that the person writing it has never written a screenplay before.
Sure. I agree with a lot of what you said. For me, it's not really rewatchable like the first one, so that definitely affected the score. So I will give this an official 3 out of 10, which makes our official Made for Movies review of this movie a 4 out of 10. So again, like Eric said, if you are a fan of kung fu movies or want to see some decent action, or if you're a fan of the games, definitely I would recommend watching it. Otherwise, it can be skipped. You kind of get it already. So at this point, why don't we get into some spoilers?
Yes, sir. So if you have not seen Mortal Kombat 2021, you do not want anything spoiled, please turn this off now. Come back after you've finished it. But yeah, we will dive right into it. So let's focus mostly on the opening scene, which sees a young Scorpion and Sub-Zero, before they are Scorpion and Sub-Zero, kind of meeting and having this amazing showdown. How did you feel about this opening scene?
It was 100% the best part of the movie, without question. Like you said, it was shot well. This has been something, that if you are a Mortal Kombat fan, you know that Sub-Zero and Scorpion are the deepest of enemies, and this kind of starts to get into where they started to form their rivalry. And it's cool that you get this introduction to Raiden early on, who's one of the best characters in Mortal Kombat history, this time played by a very good actor. Tadanobu Asano. I hope I'm not butchering that, but he did a good job. But overall, that again, it's all downhill from here.
Yeah, I thought it was really funny that Sub-Zero speaks Chinese and Japanese. Scorpion only speaks Japanese, and when Sub-Zero is talking to him in Chinese, Scorpion's just like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't speak your language, but he's like, I will kill you though. I just thought it was really funny that he could have just been saying like, hey, what's up, man? How's it going? He's like, well, I'm going to kill you. I can't understand you. Really funny. And we'll get into more of Scorpion's bilingual knowledge that he picks up in Hell to be able to say, get over here in English later on in the movie, which is fantastic. But no, I did really enjoy this opening scene. It reminded me a lot of the movie Last Samurai, which ironically enough, Scorpion is in The Last Samurai. So very well shot, doesn't have too much cuts, great action, has some emotional weight behind the scene with his family involved. Thought it was amazing. They actually released the first 8 minutes of this for free before the movie came out, and to me it is a little bit of a false advertising because the rest of the movie is so much different than these first 8 minutes, which is probably why they like. When does that ever happen that people release like the first part of the movie? I've never seen it before. So from there, yeah, we move into the one and only Cole Young's intro, where he gets his ass kicked in a like high school gymnasium MMA fight. I know you've already kind of said how you feel about Cole Young, but how do you feel just about them bringing in this character who's not in the video games?
Yeah, it's kind of showing like the universe of Mortal Kombat's a little bit bigger than we even know, and they're trying to expound upon that and get into probably a lot of stuff for the future. So I would expect this to be a recurring character in future movies if possible. But yeah, it kind of setting up that he's a former, MMA guy who was a little bit bigger at one point and now seemed to have fallen off. He actually loses the fight at the beginning, which I didn't think would happen. But yeah, it kind of just setting up what's to come.
Yeah, I thought it was a little ridiculous. He loses this fight to a random person, and then we're supposed to buy him as, the savior of the world. Really not a fan of Cole Young. The fact that the writers and director have said that the studio mandated that they include a character who's not in the games is absurd. It goes back to Resident Evil with the character of Alice and how she's the star of the series when they clearly could have just focused on, this huge catalog of characters that they had, just like the 1995 movie chose to do. And I just feel like it hamstrings them into some very poor storytelling. And he's probably my biggest issue with the whole movie and the entire plot. But we do get a couple cool scenes. I did like Sub-Zero's attack. Basically he's sent to kill everyone with the mark. So he goes after Cole and his family. And we do get a really fun scene with him and Jax where he, tears Jax's arm off. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, then we get to some of your other characters to get introductions as far as Sonya and the one and only Kano. How did you feel about their intros as well as going into that reptile fight?
Yeah, I liked that they kept Sonya Blade and Kano as similar to the story of them being connected before. Kano has killed someone who has the dragon tattoo or birthmark on them, so he then gets it. That's another plot point that if you kill someone with it, you get to be in the tournament, basically. Sonya Blade doesn't have that. But yeah, it kind of shows like her and Jax are connected, and now Cole's getting brought into the fray. But Kano, you just start to hear the best dialogue of the whole movie. So that kind of starts his hour of being in the movie of lots of F words and lots of funny one-liners that he throws out there. So Josh Lawson, again, good performance overall.
Yeah, it really feels like he goes rogue on the movie in the sense that he realizes that this movie is not that great, and he's just there to say lines that really don't make any sense, but are funny nonetheless. I did actually enjoy the fight with Reptile. I thought the CGI was well done, as well as a couple cool choices they made as far as the flare, to stab him with the flare so you could see where he was at. I thought that was pretty cool. He did, however, look exactly like Godzilla. So I don't know if Warner Brothers just like recycled Godzilla and shrunk him down to 6 feet tall. But nonetheless, at this point in the movie, I would say I was enjoying it. We're about 40 minutes into the movie, and that's when they go on the quest to Raiden's temple and meet up with Liu Kang. And once they get to the temple is where the movie really starts to fall off. But how did you feel about the training sequences at the temple, as well as, Shang Tsung and his goons coming to collect souls? Yeah,
this is kind of where the main part of the action kicks off. The so-called tournament begins, but we really find out that there is no tournament in this whole movie. It's a lot of 2-on-1. It's a lot of helping people, I guess is the way to say it. But Liu Kang's dialogue is bad. I do really like Kung Lao from the games, and was happy within one of the fights to see Kung Lao's fatality, where he takes his razor sharp hat, basically like Kano calls it I think an Asian sombrero or something like that. Kind of
something
weird.
Racist.
Yeah, very racist. And he is able to chop someone in half down the middle from top to bottom. So that was my favorite fatality from back in the games. But at this point, the dialogue becomes very stunted. You don't quite know, who's fighting who, and we find out that Kano does eventually betray all of the other fighters to allow this to happen, and then the more of the fighting ensues. So again, it's kind of boring to watch, but it's getting to the end.
Yeah, which is another thing that the poster of the movie spoils. On the main poster, it has the 4 heroes on the left side: Kung Lao, Liu Kang, Sonya, and Cole Young, and on the other side has all the villains, and Kano is with the villains, and it literally says like the heroes fighting the villains for the fate of the world. So you knew this was coming. If you've seen any of the marketing, this movie really did do a very poor job of holding anything back. But at the same time, I don't know if I can blame them, because they did a good job of selling. This movie made $23 million. It was number 1 at the box office. And I think that had they not shown all the good stuff, that maybe people would not have been as excited to see it. A couple cool moments in the training pit. I did like when, I believe it's Liu Kang, is just sweeping the leg of Kano repeatedly. I think we've all, if we've ever played the game, have been that person that just loses to the infinite sweep. So that was pretty funny. Everything else was pretty rough. I do agree with you about the Kung Lao fatality. That was the highlight of the movie, and pretty much the only part that was not in the trailer. So that was a really cool moment. But then we get into Cole's connection to Scorpion from the beginning of the movie, and oh man, this is where the movie gets a little silly for me. But how did you feel that they've kind of created Cole as like a descendant of Scorpion?
Yeah, I knew something like this was going to kind of come from this. Like, why do we care about this guy who can't say one line of dialogue well? Like, oh, because he's tied to the ultimate overall universe. Okay, got it. I didn't really like Cole's superpower as well. I didn't quite get it because he looked like a combination.
The human
of
condom.
Yeah, he looked like Dave Bautista or as Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy, just kind of weird skin. And I guess he absorbs stuff, but he does end up killing Goro, which I think is kind of hard to do. But in 2 Mortal Kombat movies, Goro's been killed relatively easily, so I guess that myth from the games is gone. But and then they just kind of rush the other people getting their superpowers. Like, it's a really big struggle for them at the beginning, and then they like Sonya kills Kano eventually, and as part of the fighting, and gets her superpower like instantly. Like, I don't understand. Like, it took the other guys like training really hard and going through a lot of obstacles or getting really angry, and then she just kind of has it. So it's kind of
she
weird.
Also shows up and does like this spinning kick through the teleportation as she's showing up. It's the most unnecessary martial arts move I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually thought Goro looked pretty cool for CGI. That fight was okay until Cole gets his body armor. I hated the body armor. I was not a fan. It was probably my least favorite decision. Anything with Cole in this movie is really bad. And I think that's the consensus around the world right now, is to hopefully get rid of Cole. But I have a strong sense that he will be back for sure.
Yeah.
One thing that did frustrate me is, so throughout the movie they have Cole having these visions of Scorpion, and they have him with the dagger from Scorpion. I wish they would have made it clearer that in order to, like, maybe they could have made the whole entire movie like a Star Wars thing of, we need to resurrect Scorpion and this is how we need to do it. You need to get the blood of the person that killed him. Like, some explanation of how he's going to come back, because we'll get into the final fights now. But Scorpion just appears out of literally nowhere. It is after he gets stabbed with the dagger, so I'm assuming that that's what they were saying, is once they got the blood of Sub-Zero, I'm filling in the plot points here because otherwise it makes no sense
Right.
at all why he shows up when he does. But how did you feel about these multiple fights? We had the Jax fight. We had the 2-on-1 fight in Scorpion and Cole versus Sub-Zero and all this nonsense of intercut fights.
Yeah, I kept kind of saying, like, why do we have to care about Sub-Zero so much? I feel like he's the least likable character on all the games. And, like, he was so important in this movie. But to be fair, like, this is what we wanted as a Scorpion versus Sub-Zero, so we do eventually get it. And like you said, it is cut together pretty quickly, but it is one of the better fights in the whole movie.
Yeah.
And we do get to see Jax do his famous fatality. They did kind of spoil the beginning of it in the trailer as well, where he smashes that guy. Reiko is the character, his head between his hands with his, and that was another thing that bummed me out, was that Jax's superpower was that he grew better metal arms than he had installed, which I was like, that is literally the laziest writing I've ever seen. Couldn't he do like ground manipulation like he does in the game, like with earthquakes or something like that? Like could have been way better. But back to the final fight, they're obviously trying to save Cole's family from Sub-Zero, and Scorpion eventually does get the upper hand and uses his fire breath. You kind of see like another dumb thing. Scorpion's face kind of goes between half skull and then back to regular and then back to skull and then kind of back to normal. So what is he, I guess, was the question I had. Like, how is he able to do this? And in the end, it resolves with Raiden kind of saying, Shang Tsung, get the heck out of here. This wasn't a tournament, and this doesn't count as anything. We just were fighting. So the world is safe for now. Obviously setting up some sequels, if that.
Yeah, one thing that bothers me with movies is the setup. Like, the setup should be in the first 20 minutes of your movie. You should never assume that you're going to get a sequel, ever. Ask Amazing Spider-Man 2 about that. The whole movie is a setup for a Sinister Six movie, and that's what this felt like. Essentially, this 2-hour movie is an extension of the first 15 minutes from the 1995 film. Now we're supposed to be getting the movie that we want with the next one. You have Johnny Cage potentially coming in. But yeah, overall, I was really disappointed in a lot of the fighting at the end just because of the cuts, and the music was pretty terrible. But I did enjoy the Scorpion for Sub-Zero part when they fought one-on-one, even though we had seen 70% of it in the trailer. Which... that frustrates me the most, I think, is just how much was spoiled in the trailer. We could keep going over and over it, but at the end of the day, I just think we're not supposed to ask these questions about the character motives and, the plot holes. I think we're just supposed to say it's a Mortal Kombat movie, so, it's okay. Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. So, any final thoughts on Mortal Kombat 2021? Overall, if you love the games, if you're a hardcore fan of the games, I think there will be some cool moments for you, and it's worth a watch. Otherwise, I think it's very skippable, and just watch the 1995 one. It's a pretty fun movie, and we have a review of that up too. Yep, Robin Shue kills it, love it. But yeah, guys, that's it for this week's podcast. We've had 3 this week. Can you believe it? And next week we'll be back to our normal 2. Monday we'll have some news and special news and anything that comes out in the world of cinema and entertainment. Other than that, any final thoughts? Yeah, if you do want to be featured on Monday's episode, please send us your comments on Mortal Kombat, and we will read the best ones. If you want to send us a video message to madeformovies.com, madeformovies@gmail.com, we'll play it on air as long as it is appropriate. Absolutely. So. And guys, don't forget to follow us on all our socials. Make sure you subscribe and rate us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We really hope you enjoyed the episode, so we will see you next time. Bye. Bye. Made for Movies.